It's a teen talk skating podcast where I embarrass myself. Hello, 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 and welcome to episode number 65 of a Teen Talks Game podcast. My name is Van Gogh, and I hope you all are doing very, very well as you listen to this podcast episode. This episode is another pre-recorded episode because by the time you're hearing this, I will be on vacation. So just like last week's episode number 64, this episode is also pre-recorded, but don't worry, I'm trying to enjoy my vacation. I very much need after all of this figure skating drama this whole season. So yeah. I do think the day that this is uploaded will be the last day of my vacation, so but I am recording this about 12 hours before my flight to go to the vacation. So, you know what I mean? I'm very dedicated. That's what I'm trying to tell you is that I'm very dedicated to the podcast. This podcast does mean a lot to me. But I hope you guys are all doing very well. Technically, it's only been 2 days or 3 days since I recorded the last one, but for you guys, it'll be a whole week before you hear it. So that's, space time continuum, la la la. I'm not trying to ruin it or anything. I'm not trying to be sucked into the vortex of the space time continuum and never see you guys again because that would be really unfortunate. But I hope you guys are all doing well. I hope you guys had a great Easter. What else? I hope you guys had a great Easter. I hope everything's going good with school and work and all the boring adult things in life that we all hate. But I should probably get starting. I should probably get started on the actual episode, which means we're gonna go first to our program of the week. So yeah, see you there after you hear the theme song. Program of the week. Okay, so for our program of the week, I decided to do a little bit more of a fun program, and I love doing little fun programs here and there. And I picked a program that was very appropriate to like the weather. And so I know in a lot of places around April, there's a lot of rain. We like to associate April with a lot of rain and fog and kind of gloominess in the air, but this program is anything but gloomy because it is a beautiful exhibition program. It's a very fun program, and that is Midori Ito and her 1992 Olympics exhibition. Midori Ito is always known for, of course, her technical skill, being the first woman to land the triple axel, landing it even at the 1992 Olympics in her free skate. But what I will say is that I think also Midori Ito is a little bit of a performer, especially in this exhibition program, which is kind of rainy day themed, if that makes sense. It's set to three different songs, I believe, which I will now search up because I do not remember their titles, but they're all about rain. So it's Rhythm of the Rain by the Cascades, Singing in the Rain by Nasio Herb Brown, and Over the Rainbow, I believe performed by Julie Garland. And it is a very beautiful program. She starts off in this little like trench coat with umbrella situation, like fake rain boots, I guess, on her skates. And she's pretending that's in the rain. The music doesn't start at the beginning and she has a little laugh about it, but when it does start, it's a sudden like stormy weather. Oh no, right? But then she kind of skates around in with the music rhythm of the rain. Which is really beautiful, and she kind of does like a lot of like steps with her umbrella, and she's flying through the rain. I really enjoy the part where she does a double axel with an umbrella. Like that should be like a whole like extra thing on GOE. Like if anyone can perform a double axel with an umbrella, they should get +5. And I know that didn't exist back then, but you know what I mean. Like if it did exist now, I would love to see this umbrella double axel situation happening again. Just saying. She also does this really cool spread eagle across the ring where she goes one direction and she kind of switches her edge so it leans towards the other direction. I love that element. And then the rain, I guess, kind of stops, right? The rain stops. So she takes off her raincoat to reveal like the 90s rainbow dress of your dreams. You know what I mean? It's black with a cool rainbow in the middle of it because now after the rain comes the rainbow because Midori Ito is an actual genius. But anyway, yeah, another beautiful skiing around. Now she does the cooler jumps, the triple axel. She does a couple spins. Highlight of this section of it is definitely a cool spiral. She does a spiral, a classic spiral, and it's a skid spiral. So she ends up like turning in the other direction during it, and then she ends it, and it's like, I love a good skid spiral for sure. But yeah, ending it off with, just some flourishes. She looks like she's having fun. She's smiling. She just won an Olympic silver medal, and now she's a rainbow. You know what I mean? She's somewhere over the dang rainbow for sure, and she's having fun with the music. And it's a whimsical program. The little steps are, really cute and petite, and they're not. It's not a full blown step sequence, but it's just fun. It's expressive, and it's something that. I would really love to see in competition. This could be a competition program. I wouldn't care. I would watch it for sure. But yeah, something fun for this season for sure. So go check it out after you listen to this episode. It is Midori Ito and her 1992 Olympics exhibition program. Go check it out after you listen to this main episode, which we'll get to now after the song. That was your program of the week. Okay, so we are back with another video essay episode because I'm just recording another video essay because those are the ones that I want to do in advance, if that makes sense. Ordinarily, I would be discussing the results of the World Team Trophy, but do not worry, that will be the episode next week. That will be episode number 66. We'll be analyzing the results of the World Team Trophy. So don't worry, I have not forgotten about the World Team Trophy. In fact, I've been watching it, so we are all set. That's what I'm saying. We are all set. So in this video essay episode, I'm doing an episode about one skater in particular, just focusing on the career of one skater. And you've probably never heard about this one. Her name is Yuna Kim, I think. Like I know no one talks about her. She's from some country called South Korea, and she's an Olympic champion or something. So I don't really know, but Yuna Kim. It's a tragedy. Like no one talks about her, right? But jokes aside, obviously, Yuna Kim is, widely known as one of the best figure skaters of all time, as well as a great cause for the rise of popularity of figure skating in South Korea, where she's from. In South Korea, after or during, and then after the reign of Yuna Kim as queen of figure skating, the public became so much more interested in figure skating. It became so much more popular in the public, and especially athletes. More kids started going into skating. More parents started getting their kids into skating. It was like the Yuna Kim pandemic, if that makes sense. It was like Yuna Kim was just a household name in Korea. Everyone knew who she was. Everyone wanted to be like her. She was everyone's idol, everything. And, I really want to analyze all of this, her career and her impact for sure, and why I feel like it's such a special case in figure skating and why it's such a special, like, phenomenon in the history of figure skating that I think is super notable. This is really similar to my analysis of Yuzuru Hanyu episode. I believe I did that one back in September era, early September, I believe it was my Yuzuru Hanyu episode. And in that episode, like this one, I concentrated on the rise of one figure skating star or celebrity, that being Yuzuru Hanyu, and I analyzed the impact of his career on his fans, the public, and even himself as a person. Um, and so that's very similar to what I'm doing here with Yuna Kim in this episode. So yeah, if you're interested also in Yuzuru Hanyu, go check out that episode. I recorded it back in September of 2024, and it was a really good episode. It did really well. So yeah, shameless self promotion or whatever, you know what I mean? But anyway, Yuna Kim. It's almost hard to say, like, to find what to say about Yuna Kim because there's so much I could say about Yuna Kim. So in this episode, we're really gonna focus on her story, as in her career, her main, like, major achievements, the rise of Korean figure skating as a result of Yuna Kim, her legacy today, and then what can we learn from this as figure skating fans, as a sport in general? What can we learn from the career of Yuna Kim? Okay, so starting off with her story, right? Yuna Kim, where'd she come from? Her background, her everything. Yuna Kim ends up starting skating at the age of 5 in a country, South Korea, where figure skating was not a super popular sport at all. Korea had never won a world medal. They had never won an Olympic medal. They had never won Grand Prix medals, junior medals. It wasn't really a huge thing for Korea at the time. And all of that is about to change because of Yuna Kim. But you do have to understand that skating was not a thing in South Korea. It was, if you skated, you were going into short track speed skating or speed skating. You were not really going into figure skating, which was not seen as a really huge sport at the time. It wasn't super important. It wasn't a household thing. It wasn't just a thing you would go do regularly. It wasn't very popular. And so the federation was pretty small. There weren't a ton of athletes, obviously, and results weren't catastrophic or anything. And so South Korea remained as a pretty small federation with a few skaters that were really good. And all of that again is about to change. Yuna Kim trains super hard. Her mother trains super hard for her daughter, and she becomes such a star in Korea domestically. She ends up winning senior nationals at the age of 12, okay? At the age of 12. Like, what were you doing at the age of 12? Probably not winning senior nationals in your sport, right? Even if you did a sport, which to me is like I wasn't doing a sport at age of 12. I'm still not doing a sport. Like, when I was the age of 12, I was sitting on the couch watching figure skating, and she was senior national champion in South Korea, which is crazy. Also, I'm getting all this info from Wikipedia, so if it's wrong, I'm sorry. Okay. And, at the age of 12, becoming senior national champion is probably like a really huge deal. Probably. And so Yuna Kim is, there's a lot of spotlight on her age, and like at least domestically in Korea, there's like, oh, this girl just became national champion at age 12. So there's all these spotlights on her from the Korean media, the press, and everything. And then that moves to the international attention when she makes very immediate progress on the junior international level. She wastes no time getting medals on the Junior Grand Prix, the Junior Grand Prix final, and Junior Worlds in her very first season. I believe she won silver at Junior Worlds in that first season, which was the year, I think, 2005 to 2006, I believe, was her first senior season, right? Or no, it was 2004. Yeah, 2004 to 5. Um, and so she really popped, right? Like it was like, oh, Yuna Kim. And she's kind of started becoming a bigger name in figure skating communities. Who is this junior girl from South Korea winning all these great medals? Like great for her. Great for her. And like we're like, okay, can she be consistent? And of course she was consistent because the next season of 2005, 2006, she ends up winning the Junior World Champion title the very next season. She was unfortunately age ineligible for the Olympics that season, but honestly, if she had gone to the Olympics that season, she definitely could have done really, really well for herself. But yeah, she ends up, going in Junior Worlds again and getting that gold that she was missing after getting silver the previous year. And at that 2005 Junior Worlds is where she not meets, but she has the kind of the start of her rivalry with Mal Asada, who isn't, maybe 2004, maybe it kind of okay. But Mao Asada and Yuna Kim is kind of like an iconic rivalry in figure skating for sure. And they competed many times in their junior career. They competed many times in their senior career together. And yeah, that's something to note for sure. But the focus is definitely on Yuna in this episode. So and then at the time after becoming junior world champ, there were still some financial difficulties for Yuna Kim. Figure skating, as you know, is a very expensive sport. No one's making money in this sport. And so with the lack of like corporate sponsors, I believe is what Wikipedia said. Right. Sorry. Yeah, lack of corporate sponsors. There were no really big brands paying Yuna Kim. I was gonna say Taylor Swift. I don't know why. There's not really any big brands paying for Yuna Kim, and her training and everything, the coaching, the jumps, the choreography. It's an expensive ordeal, especially when if you're from a country with not really big exposure to figure skating to get those sponsors. And so the K-Fed ends up paying for some of it. So great for them. Great for them for supporting their skaters. But you have to understand they're investing in this like star. Okay, they're investing in this star because they believe that Yuna Kim is like the hope for Korean figure skating. They are investing their money in Yuna Kim as an athlete at the very young age of maybe 15, 16, that she is going to be the future of Korean figure skating. Fast forward to the next season. It's the post Olympic season. After the 2006 Olympics, it's the 2006 2007 season, which is, always a very rebuilding season for a lot of the figure skating disciplines because a lot of skaters end up retiring after the Olympics. And so this is kind of the prime time to rise up and kind of make a statement. Because it's a prime time for a lot of people to kind of rise up and put their name into the basket as someone you should watch out for this upcoming quad leading up to the 2010 Olympics. And Yuna Kim, because she's crazy, ends up winning the Grand Prix final in her senior debut season, which is, again, crazy. She ends up going to Worlds as well, and she ends up getting a world bronze, even while fighting some injury issues. She was injured around this time period, but she ended up still going to Worlds, still getting a bronze medal. Great result for her. And then she had a lot of continued success for sure, leading up to the season after. And then she ended up even winning. Sorry, she ended up even winning the yeah, she ended up winning the Grand Prix final the next season and then going to Worlds and getting a bronze medal at Worlds as well. The 2008 and 2009 season, the 2009 season will be my nose. Oh my gosh. Will be kind of like the pinnacle, the start of the pinnacle of Yuna Kim's career. Because she ends up winning the gold at the 2009 World Figure Skating Championships. It's the biggest, accolade that any Korean figure skater has ever won, winning gold at 2009 Worlds. And the success keeps on going. The success keeps on going. You know what I mean? Like it just keeps on going. Her 2009 to 2010 season is, possibly like the best season of her entire career. She wins gold at almost every competition, and of course, we led up to the 2010 Olympics in Vancouver, Canada. And she was entering as the definite favorite for that Olympic gold, and she fought because those two programs, her James Bond short program and her Gershwin Rhapsody in F program, are definitely the most iconic programs for at least set of programs for any skater at the Olympics, like probably ever, any skater who's achieved that much success ever, because those programs are so iconic. The James Bond kind of like fun, kind of like saucy vibe, and then the Rhapsody in F is so classical, it's classy, it's kind of glam. She ends up breaking two world records in both the short program and the free skate, which means she gets a world record in overall score. She wins by a huge, huge margin. I believe she about like 20 points or something. Like it was huge. It was like crazy. She could have fallen like three times and she still maybe could have won. You know what I mean? Like it was actually crazy. And as a result of winning the Olympic gold medal, Yuna Kim launches immediately into fame, right? Which tends to happen when a lot of people win a gold medal is that they are so famous. Fame. And this is, I think, when the whole world and South Korea in particular really started paying attention to Yuna Kim because, if you're thinking from the perspective of South Korea, and where the sport is not that popular, like, oh my gosh, one of our own countrywomen just won the Olympic gold medal in a sport that like none of us like do really. And yeah, this is when South Korea's like, oh my god, figure skating is something we should invest in because if we have one skater like Yuna Kim, who, kind of went through this with not a lot of support, not a lot of money. Like, think about what would happen if we gave a lot of money out. There's some definite stars out there to see, and obviously that we have shown that today. But yeah, the 2010 Olympics is really when everything kind of changed for Yuna Kim and everything kind of changed for South Korea because they are so intertwined together for sure. After the 2010 season, Yuna Kim ends up splitting with Brian Orser. She ends up going to train with Peter Oppergaard, which, definitely was a very controversial kind of thing at the time, supposedly. Definitely a lot of, lots of like crazy stuff. She ends up skipping the 2011-2012 season as a break. She ends up representing Korea in its bid for the 2018 Olympics, which it later wins. In this time period, she also started this show, the ice show All That Skate in Korea, again bringing more exposure to figure skating in Korea through an ice show. The 2012-2013 season, she barely competes, but she ends up going to the 2013 Worlds, which she wins in an awesome comeback, also with a huge margin there. In the later half of the year 2013, she ends up getting injured, and she ends up saying or making the 2014 Olympics her very last competition. And so in her final goodbye, she skates a beautiful short program to Send in the Clowns and an equally beautiful free skate to Adios Nonino, meaning goodbye. Adios, in a way, goodbye to her figure skating career, to her fans. She ends up winning the silver at the 2014 Olympics under Russian skater Adelina Sotnikova, which is still a very controversial result. But, I've already discussed that many, many times, and we don't need to hear that again. And after winning the silver at the 2014 Olympics, it is announced that Yuna Kim will be retiring from competitive figure skating for good. And yeah, so she ends up leaving figure skating, and that's it. That's no more competitions, no more worlds, no more Olympics, no more Korean nationals. But she ends up still doing kind of being involved. She does a lot of sponsorship. She does a lot of ice shows. She does a little bit of coaching here and there. But overall, she leads a pretty private life now, apparently, which is good for her. You don't hear a ton about Yuna Kim these days, like what's going on right now. But yeah, that like giant leap into celebrity status must have been very disorienting, for sure, very different experience. And so she kind of turned towards kind of leading a more private life, which is amazing for her. Okay, talking about that was her story, talking about her achievements, which is awesome from Wikipedia. Her main, I think, this is like the main thing that gets me every time I hear this, is that Yuna Kim never finished off a podium in her entire career. As far as I know, no other skater can claim that as a accomplishment, especially someone who's like skated in as many competitions as Yuna Kim. She was skating a lot back then. And this is absolutely insane, right? Imagine going to a competition and always being first, second, or third. Like, you're never going to be fourth. You're never going to be fifth. You're never going to be like 20th. That's a crazy thing. She did that at every competition she went to, junior level, senior level, Grand Prix finals, worlds. Like, it's actually crazy to think about. Along with that, she does have a career golden slam. So she won every junior competition. She won every senior competition as well. That is kind of like possible, or all the major ones on the junior and senior level. Um, first Korean. She was the first Korean to do this. She was the first Korean to do that. She was the first Korean to win the world title. She was the first Korean to win the Olympic title in figure skating. She was the first Korean to land this or do that. She was the first Korean to do so many things in her career, obviously breaking all these momentual, lots of monuments in the history of Korean figure skating. All have to do with Yuna Kim and the rise of her skating ability and how she impressed the world and showed that, yeah, this girl from Korea that maybe isn't a super popular figure skating country can do absolutely everything that she can. And additionally, she got 13 different world records. That is the junior level and senior level combined. So those are world records in short programs, world records in free skates, world records in total score. Obviously, her 2010 Olympics is like the highlight of that. I think at the 2010 Olympics was like 228, I think, in overall score, which at the time was a huge result and is still a huge result. If she was still competing today, that score would have won her worlds this year. Um, you know, Putting things into perspective, that's how high that she was scoring. That's how high she was scoring, and that's a score that is still very competitive today. She could have won worlds with that score. She could have won Grand Prix final with that score. Definitely for sure, just like a huge accomplishment. And obviously, aside from the technical part, she was known for her emotion. She was known for her expression. She was known for her, movement on the ice and her ability to portray all these very complex emotions. Um, which is a very like honorable like thing to not honorable, but a very like incredible thing to be able to do is balance that technical with that artistry. It's a skill we maybe find rare in skaters today that have that really perfect balanced mix of the art and the technical side, and I feel like Yuna Kim is one of those cases that we kind of had that for sure. um and so that's talking about her career in general. Next, I want to talk about the rise of Korean skating. Why did suddenly after Unit Kim did Korea become like so obsessed with figure skating that it has become one of the biggest powerhouses in figure skating today, at least in the men's and the women's singles disciplines? And, Yuna Kim, I feel like did have a big effect on that. Koreans across the country, you have to understand that it was not a thing at the time to watch this, but they saw this young woman from their own country skate her heart out at, competition after competition. Going to Worlds, going to the 2010 Olympics, obviously, and winning the gold there was a huge result that showed Korea, yes, they can make it in figure skating. It was like, what is this sport? What is this sport? I've never seen it before. Like, who is this young woman from our country? How did she learn it? What's her career like? Like, wow, look at those jumps she can do. Look at those spins. Look at those spirals that she's getting. It was so magical for, I think, a lot of the world and a lot of Koreans to see Yuna Kim skate, because it just wasn't the thing to do back then. It just wasn't the common thing to watch. And, you know, she was, the figure skater when it was a country full of speed skaters and short track speed skaters. She was the figure skater that she kind of introduced, in a sense, the sport to Korea. And not introduced, but she like so popularized the sport in Korea that so many aspired to be just like her, or at least a lot of parents aspired to make their kids be just like her. um and, looking up at Unit Kim as an idol in a sense, right? Looking at her and being like, I want to be just like her. I want my kid to be just like Unit Kim. She was, of course, a key figure in bringing the Winter Olympics to Pyeongchang in 2018, again, increasing awareness for figure skating and winter sports in general. And, showing people like the success that figure skating could bring you, the success that becoming such an amazing skater could bring you. Her style as well was iconic, extreme art and expression. It was excellent skating skills that, I think people really try to not emulate but really look up to. Those The control of her blades and the expression, the choreography, the tone, the pacing of these programs, even the music choices that people are kind of inspired by, like her Danse Macabre short program, her homage to Korea free skate that we've seen in Han Lee, for example, that people just wanted to be just like Yuna or be so inspired and motivated by who Yuna Kim was. And we call her the queen in figure skating for a reason, because she was definitely the ice queen. The queen of ice, Elsa. I'm kidding, that's not it. That it gave her that name as the queen. That's how we like refer to her, because Yuna really is the queen. Um, and Queen Yuna Kim was so like such a monumental figure in this growth of Korean figure skating that even the generations after Yuna Kim, the generations of skaters that came up, became known as the Yuna Kids generation. Of course, we see skaters today like Han Lee, Yaelin Kim, um, who else? Cha Jin Wan, uh, who have said or have been inspired by Yuna Kim, her style, and even skaters abroad that are not from South Korea have looked up to Yuna Kim as a skater before, because she's such a historical figure in what Korean figure skating is. And so South Korea went from a nation known pretty much exclusively for speed skating and short track speed skating, as I said, to include figure skating as well. Before, figure skating was something to skip on the TV, but people literally paid tickets and they paid hundreds and hundreds of dollars and hundreds of their time and their energy to go to the 2018 Winter Olympics in South Korea to go watch the figure skating events, which were insanely popular at the time. The 2018 Winter Olympics in South Korea were super popular, especially domestically in South Korea. They wanted to go to Pyeongchang and see go see the figure skating events and watch like the skaters at the time and experience what figure skating was like in person. And without Yuna Kim, maybe the figure skating events wouldn't have been so popular. But the and then obviously in terms of Korea as a whole, the Korean Skating Federation was able to build itself up more. Because of kind of the increased publicity of figure skating, it got a lot more money for sure. And so the lots of programs to build up obviously to train figure skaters for the future, the real future of figure skating, the kids that would go to junior grand prix competitions and novice competitions and advanced novice competitions that we have. Sending more skaters out is a huge deal, obviously exposing them to international competition, exposing them to high pressure training environments, not just keeping them in South Korea, being able to keep them going and keeping them to be able to send them out to these really, high prime countries with other competitive skaters from around the world. And probably a lot of money involved for the Korean Skating Federation. Yuna Kim probably made them a ton of money, got them a lot more publicity, obviously. And it's to the point where today Korea is a huge figure skating country. It's Korean competitors are super competitive. They've won world medals before. They've won Grand Prix medals. It's hard to imagine what figure skating would be like without the South Korean Skating Federation, because um, there's so many like big names from South Korea these days, such as Cha Jun-won, obviously, who's won a silver at Worlds. Hae Lee has also won a silver at Worlds before. Doing four continents. Chaeyeon Kim is a world medalist as well, bronze at last year, and then the Four Continents champion this year, who skated in Seoul. Again, another big thing was bringing a lot of skating competitions to South Korea. So, Four Continents especially was a big thing. There were rumors that they were going to take over one of the Grand Prix a few seasons ago. And so the Korean Skating Federation became a much bigger deal. And South Korea kind of modernized its figure skating program. And now we have all these upcoming skaters who are doing, they're landing triple jumps, they're landing triple letters, triple toes, they're trying triple axles. Even on the junior level today, you can see that there's a lot of developing skaters from South Korea in men's and women's, definitely. And a lot of them have become junior world medalists or they've qualified to the junior Grand Prix final. And a lot of this, again, not to say all of it, but a lot of this has to do with Yuna Kim and the impact her journey and her legacy kind of left behind. Looking at, you know, how insane her career was and how that led to a lot of people wanting to be just like her, and how that still affects, that is the effects of that, the aftershocks of her career are still being felt today in South Korean skating for sure. And so her legacy, what does Yuna Kim leave behind? She leaves behind a huge legacy of inspiring skaters that came after her. Obviously being considered, one of the greatest figure skaters of all time in any discipline, in any time period over time. Still being an inspiration is a huge deal, especially being a more modern inspiration that's just happened, 15-ish years ago is when she won her Olympic medal. That's not too far away. It isn't, she's not from like 100 years ago, but she feels recent and she feels possible to imagine and to think about. And she left a lasting impact on Korean skating forever, and honestly the world skating for sure. She showed the world what figure skating could be. She had her own unique style. She had her own artistry. It's something to aim for. There's like a Yuna Kim standard now, right? Um, and so and so it was just so it was so like again, it's such a monument because she became the standard. She became something to look up to. She became the golden star at the top of the wall with her name right on it, and you wanted to be just like her. So that's really important to know. And so the last part I want to talk about is what we can learn from the career of Yuna Kim, if that makes sense. Because she has had such a, again, another, to use another word, she has had such like a monumental career that I want to be able to discuss, like, what do we learn from this? One thing to learn from this is representation is everything, I think. Because when you see skaters that look like you, that are from where you are, that are, that are not too much older than you feel like it is possible to be like them, if that makes sense. This applies to things outside of figure skating as well. But when you see somebody that is your idol, who literally like looks at you or looks like you, or who is from the same city, the same country that you're from, you become such a huge role model. And I think Yuna Kim is a perfect example of that because she is an idol. She's a role model. She's a whole pop star, for so many Korean skaters that, who feel represented there. Look at on the screen, right? Look at on the screen that that young woman from our country. That young woman is like representing us. She's winning a gold medal for our country, for herself as well. Imagine how proud people are of seeing this young woman and Yuna Kim winning for them, winning for herself, and being like, I want to be just like her. A lot of children back then, and even if, non-Korean skaters look up to her, becoming an Olympic champion, becoming a world champion, it's not just about being from South Korea, it's being just who Yuna Kim is. I think a lot of non-Korean skaters look up to her. Maybe non-Korean skaters who don't come from a huge figure skating federation, or who maybe don't have a ton of financial means to pay for their training. But of course, Yuna Kim is from a small country too. She's from a smaller federation. She was from a smaller federation at the time. She didn't have a lot of money to pay for her training, and look at her now. That's kind of the kind of thinking I feel like is super important when we talk about representation in figure skating, is making sure there is someone for everyone to look up to. There's someone from every everywhere. And so and obviously, when even if you have a representative, the main thing I think is visibility of that representative, because people saw Yuna Kim on TV from her skating, but people in South Korea also saw Yuna Kim in a lot of advertisements. She became a celebrity at the time. Advertising, she was advertising cars. She was being sponsored by so many brands. She was, an icon, like makeup wise. She had amazing makeup. Um, she had style. She had these, outfits. She definitely had all these like these brands associated with her, huge brands. She's been on the cover of magazines recently, I feel like. She's had photo shoots for her. Like it was like, it's the visibility thing, because when figure skating is already a sport that is not watched a ton, the thing is kind of like extending figure skating and the figure skaters to kind of like the general audience, if that makes sense. And so Yuna Kim is a great example of that, of how South Korea managed to kind of bring figure skating and Yuna Kim to the general public. So many photo shoots, so many brands, so many advertisements. And, I think that's really like a huge thing when we consider how do we make figure skating more popular, make figure skating more visible, make figure skating more accessible, because it's a lot easier to see a magazine with someone's face on it than, go watch them at a competition. That's super boring. It's super hard to find. La 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 la. And then, I think at the end of the day, I think the main lesson you learn from Unicamp is surprises are everywhere. I always say ice is slippery in this podcast, and I usually mean it in a bad way because people fall on ice, obviously. But sometimes ice is slippery can also kind of be a metaphor for life. I'm sure not many expected the kind of rocket rise of this South Korean figure skater at the time. I wasn't even alive really at the time of the main rise of Yuna Kim, but just thinking about Yuna Kim, I think at the time, not many people, South Korean or just otherwise in the international figure skating community, expected the very rocket rise of this South Korean skater. Especially back then, there wasn't any like huge internet things to share about, these really young skaters for sure. And so, Kim becoming like an icon was kind of unprecedented. It was out of nowhere, out of left field, out of South Korea. Surprises are anywhere. I think ice can be slippery, and Kim may have slipped into to fame and to being becoming a celebrity. Um, for sure. That's what Yuna Kim kind of fell into, slipped into, was becoming a huge celebrity. And I think the main thing is do not underestimate anyone. I think this sport pulls surprises all the time. Just because somebody was from a small country does not mean that they don't have the potential to be great one day. We see a lot of modern examples too with Belgium, for example, with Luna Hendricks and Nina Pinzerone, who are from again a very small figure skating federation, but yet they're such good skaters who are very accomplished, very accomplished. We see that also maybe in Latvia with Denis Valsiev. Is Latvia a huge figure skating country? No, but he is also such a star, and he's definitely one of my favorites because I'm very biased. But don't underestimate any figure skating country. There will be a great figure skater from your country one day, for sure. Maybe you will be the greatest figure skater from your country. Maybe you will earn a world medal, an Olympic medal for your country. It's kind of crazy to think about how Unicam kind of sprung out of nowhere, and became such a huge star in international figure skating. And of course, it speaks to her hard work and her perseverance as well. She didn't have a huge federation that would bribe the judges or something. You know what I mean? There was no huge Korean figure skating federation that had access to the highest quality coaches maybe of the world, or they didn't have huge training facilities and training athlete schools just for figure skaters. At the end of the day, Kim was just, a normal girl in from South Korea until she kind of wasn't. She didn't have access to, like a ton of money. Um, she didn't have access to all these resources and all these jumping harnesses probably until she earned more and more success, and she got more money from the Korean figure skating federation. She got more sponsors, and that's when she even continued her success. She never gave up. She never stopped working hard to achieve where she wants to be, and that's a very inspiring story to a lot of people. Again, tying back to the rise of figure skating in South Korea, is that she was not born rich. She wasn't born already a skater. Her parents were not skaters for sure. She just fell into the sport. She slipped into the sport, the slippery, icy nature of the sport, and she ended up becoming one of its biggest superstars in the entire 21st century. And, it really does speak to how crazy the sport can be for sure, that someone can achieve that much success. And it speaks to how it isn't impossible for anybody. I can make the Olympic team one day if I believed in myself. But honestly, if you start young, you're motivated, you have the hard work to put in, and you want to be great, it is, kind of something that is possible. I think that's what the career of Unichem shows. You don't got to be rich. You don't have to come from a big country. You don't have to come from a big federation. All you need is really the hard work, the perseverance, maybe a little bit of luck, and a lot of motivation. So overall, I really do think Yuna Kim's career and the subsequent effects of it are really, a once in a blue moon event in figure skating. It was unprecedented. It was amazing to see this happening. That she rose and kind of brought Korea to figure skating with her, and how that has totally impacted modern Korean figure skating. You do wonder if that little girl in South Korea skating at the rink at the age of 5, she would have known that she would inspire so many people with big dreams just like that, just like her. Because at 5 years old, she was surely probably thinking about the world podium. She was probably thinking about the Olympic podium, and she ends up making it when she's an adult. And you really do wonder, did that little girl know that that was going to be really the future and that she was going to be the biggest inspiration to so many Korean figure skaters? And so that's how I would like to end off this episode, kind of with all that praise of Yuna Kim and the praise of her career and the effects of her career, and how South Koreans responded to it so tremendously and so celebratory in that way. Anyway, that was all for this episode of the Teen Talks Gang podcast. My name is Van Gogh. I hope you enjoyed kind of my long rant about Yuna Kim. I know it was kind of a long rant, but anyway, next episode will be a review of the World Team Trophy, which I have been following. Um, the day after I'm recording this episode will be the final day of the World Team Trophy, and then I will know the results, and then I can freak out over them. So don't worry, I will be talking about the World Team Trophy. That episode will be coming out this next week that you're listening to this episode. So that will be May 3rd, I believe, will be the World Team Trophy review. So don't worry, I am doing it. Great discussion on the results there next episode and all the chaos and all the team events and whatever is happening in Tokyo right now. I have no idea. But yeah, thank you so much for listening to this episode of Teen Talks Game Podcast. My name is Van Gogh. I hope you enjoyed everything you heard about Yuna Kim and Korean figure skating and me being crazy for like 40 minutes, for 45 minutes, I guess. Sorry. But I hope you all will listen to my next episode about an amazing review of the World Team Trophy. I really need to go on vacation to save my voice right now. I will see you next week, and bye bye.